Chosen ones, stop scrolling. Something just shifted in the spiritual realm. And if you're hearing this message right now, it's because your name was spoken in the courts of heaven. This is not a coincidence. You didn't stumble across this video by accident. You were drawn here by an invisible hand, pulled by a force that's been watching you, waiting for this exact moment when your spirit would be ready to receive what's about to be revealed. For months, maybe years, you felt it, haven't you? That strange weight pressing against your chest in the middle of the night. That sense that something massive was building in the unseen realm, something with your name written all over it. You've been under attack, and you couldn't understand why. The isolation, the financial pressure, the spiritual warfare that seemed to come out of nowhere. What if I told you that every single battle you fought was because they saw what was coming for you before you did? What if everything they told you about waiting, about being patient, about staying small, was a lie designed to keep you from stepping into what heaven has been preparing? You see, there are forces both seen and unseen that have been monitoring the chosen ones. They've been tracking those who carry the ancient fire, those who were marked before the foundation of the world, and they've been terrified, absolutely terrified, of what would happen when you finally awaken to who you really are. But here's what they didn't count on. God doesn't just call the chosen ones. He protects them. He hides them. He seasons them in the wilderness until the appointed time. And that time, that divine moment they've been dreading, is now. Right now, as you're listening to this, someone is being sent. Not just anyone. Someone who will shift everything in your world. Someone who carries keys to unlock doors you didn't even know existed. Someone whose very presence will cause your enemies to scatter and your destiny to accelerate. And what happened next? What God just revealed about this divine appointment made the darkness tremble. Before we go any deeper, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. But know this, chosen one, you are valued whether you give a penny or $1,000. Now, are you ready to discover who's coming to shift everything in your life? Are you prepared to learn why every door that closed, every person who walked away, every season of silence was actually heaven clearing the path for this divine encounter? Because what you're about to hear will change how you see your past, your present, and the future that's racing toward you faster than you can imagine. The revelation begins now. They thought that moment would pass unnoticed. You remember it, don't you? That night when you couldn't sleep, when the weight of everything pressed so heavy on your chest that you could barely breathe, the bills piling up, the relationships crumbling, the dreams that felt more like distant memories than living possibilities. And in that darkness, something stirred in your spirit, not loud, not dramatic, just a whisper so soft you almost dismissed it as your own imagination. But you didn't dismiss it. You listened, through the tears streaming down your face, through the ache in your soul that felt like it might never heal. You whispered back, "Yes, Lord, whatever you want. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of trying to make it happen my way. If this is it, if this is all there is, then I surrender. But if there's more, if you still have a plan, I'm here." The room stayed quiet. The circumstances didn't change. The phone didn't ring with a miracle. The bank account didn't suddenly fill. But something shifted. Not in the natural, in the realm you couldn't see. The whisper that came to you in the dark wasn't quiet in heaven, it was thunder. The moment those words left your lips, every demonic principality that had been tormenting you suddenly froze. Not because they lost power, but because they recognized something they hadn't expected. Surrender. True, complete, holy surrender. The kind that doesn't negotiate. The kind that doesn't keep a backup plan. The kind that says, "I'd rather die in God's will than live in my own." Angels who had been standing guard over your life suddenly leaned forward. Watchers who had been chronicling your battles suddenly stood at attention. Because in the courts of heaven, your whisper registered as a legal decree, a binding contract, a divine authorization. You thought you were just praying, but you were actually signing your name on heaven's assignment roster. That moment, that sacred, broken, beautiful moment when you stopped trying to be strong and started being honest, that's when the orchestration began. Not the orchestration of comfortable circumstances, but the orchestration of divine interference. God doesn't answer surrender prayers with ease. He answers them with earthquakes. You felt it in the days that followed, didn't you? Everything started shifting, not necessarily getting better at first, but definitely getting unstuck. Relationships that had been dragging you down suddenly ended. Jobs that were suffocating your spirit suddenly dissolved. People who had been taking advantage of your kindness suddenly revealed their true colors and walked away. You called it falling apart. Heaven called it clearing the field. Because here's what you didn't know in that moment of surrender. Your whisper triggered a divine reshuffling. Angels received new assignments. Principalities received new restrictions. And somewhere someone whose name you don't know yet, whose face you haven't seen, someone who had been prepared for years to walk alongside you in this next chapter, they felt it too. They felt the pull, the divine magnetic force that happens when two purposes are about to align. They didn't know why they suddenly started praying for you. They couldn't explain why your city, your situation, your calling kept dropping into their thoughts. But they started moving in your direction without even realizing it. That's the power of a surrender prayer. Chosen one. It doesn't just change your trajectory, it alters the spiritual atmosphere around every person connected to your destiny. You've been walking differently since that night, haven't you? Not necessarily with more confidence at first, but with more clarity. The fog that had been clouding your vision for months, maybe years, started lifting. You began to see certain people for who they really were. You started recognizing certain opportunities as distractions rather than doors. You found yourself saying no to things that used to seem appealing. They called it you becoming difficult. God called it you becoming discerning. The truth is, the moment you surrendered, heaven started cleaning house on your behalf. Every relationship that wasn't built to last your next level started cracking. Every situation that was feeding off your brokenness started starving. Every door that was only open because you were settling started swinging shut. But something else started happening too. Doors you had never seen before started creaking open. Opportunities that matched your calling rather than just your circumstances started appearing. People who recognized your anointing rather than just your availability started noticing you. You thought you were ending something that night, but you were actually beginning everything. The person who's coming to shift your entire world, they've been in preparation since that moment. While you've been learning to walk in your new level of surrender, they've been learning to walk in theirs. While you've been discovering who you really are beneath all the masks you used to wear, they've been doing the same work in their own life. This isn't coincidence. This is convergence. Two souls prepared by the same fires, refined by the same faithfulness, called to carry the same frequency of divine purpose. You weren't just whispering into the darkness that night. You were calling them home, and they heard you, not with their ears, but with their spirit. The same spirit that recognized your surrender as an invitation to something greater than either of you could build alone. The whisper that woke the watchers didn't just announce your availability to heaven. It announced your readiness for the divine partnership that's been written in the stars since before you took your first breath. They're coming, chosen one. And when they arrive, you'll realize that every tear you cried that night, every word you whispered in that sacred surrender, was actually a love letter being delivered to exactly the right person at exactly the right time. The whisper that felt like giving up was actually the sound of your breakthrough being born. They thought fear would break you. It backfired. You see, chosen one, what you've never understood until now is that your pain had a signature on it. Your suffering carried a return address. And that address wasn't from heaven, it was postmarked from the pit itself. Because long before you ever knew your name, hell knew your assignment. Long before you could spell purpose, darkness was already plotting to destroy it. You didn't pick this fight, but you inherited the oil. And hell smells it. Think back to your childhood. Think back to those moments when you felt different, isolated, like you were carrying something too heavy for your small frame. You thought it was your imagination. You thought maybe you were just sensitive. Maybe you were just unlucky. But what if I told you that every strange attack, every inexplicable rejection, every door that slammed in your face was actually a demonic strategy session gone public? The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on empty targets. Chosen one. Demons don't gather in conference rooms to plan the downfall of the ordinary. They don't hold midnight meetings about people who pose no threat to their kingdom. But you were different. You carried something ancient, something that made the darkness nervous before you even knew how to tie your shoes. You were attacked early because you were dangerous before you were developed. That's why the bullying started before you could defend yourself. That's why the financial struggles hit your family like a targeted missile. That's why relationships seemed to crumble around you for no reason you could name. Hell was launching preemptive strikes, trying to wound you before you could discover the weapon you carried in your spirit. But here's what the enemy miscalculated, and this is where his plan backfired spectacularly. Every attack was actually building your resistance. Every betrayal was strengthening your discernment. Every season of isolation was developing your ability to hear God's voice above the noise of human approval. You didn't fall, you rose. You didn't run, you stood. You didn't flinch, you smiled. And with each smile in the face of suffering, hell's strategy crumbled a little more, because they were trying to create a victim, but heaven was forging a victor. They were attempting to birth bitterness, but the Most High was cultivating character. Every scar they intended as a mark of defeat became a badge of divine endurance. The attacks weren't random, chosen one. They were precisely calculated, but so was your survival. You see, there's a courtroom in heaven where your case has been heard, where every tear has been entered as evidence, where every sleepless night has been recorded as testimony. And the verdict isn't just not guilty, it's divinely destined. The very resistance you faced becomes the proof of your calling. The intensity of the warfare validates the magnitude of your assignment. Hell doesn't fight people who don't matter. Darkness doesn't invest decades of opposition in lives that won't make a difference. The fact that you've been under such relentless attack isn't evidence of your weakness, it's confirmation of your worth. You were a threat before you were trained. You were dangerous before you were developed. You carried fire before you knew how to light a match. And now, as you sit here listening to this message, something is shifting in the spiritual realm, because the enemy's greatest fear is coming to pass. You're not just surviving anymore, you're awakening. You're not just enduring, you're understanding. The chosen one who was supposed to be broken by opposition is instead being refined by it. Think of it this way. Chosen one. Every attack was actually a training session in disguise. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every financial struggle taught you dependence on God. Every lonely season taught you to hear His voice. The enemy thought he was destroying you, but he was actually developing you. You didn't fight fire with fire, you transcended the battlefield. While hell was throwing everything it had at you, you learned something they never expected. You learned that your strength didn't come from fighting back, it came from standing still. You discovered that your power wasn't in retaliation, it was in righteousness. You found that your victory wasn't in violence, it was in vigilance. And now, after all these years of preparation disguised as persecution, you're about to step into what you were always meant to carry. The oil that hell smelled on you before you were even born is about to be poured out. The assignment that made demons nervous is about to be activated. The calling that triggered decades of warfare is about to be fulfilled. Because here's the truth they never wanted you to discover, chosen one. You weren't just randomly selected for suffering. You were strategically positioned for significance. Every battle was actually a graduation requirement. Every test was actually a training exercise. Every storm was actually a strengthening session. The enemy attacked early because you were dangerous before you were developed. But now you're both dangerous and developed. Now you're both anointed and aware. Now you're both called and confident. And that, chosen one, is why someone is coming to shift everything in your life. Because heaven doesn't just vindicate the faithful, heaven validates them. And your validation isn't just personal, it's prophetic. Your breakthrough isn't just individual, it's generational. Hell knew before you did, but now you know too. And that changes everything. The resistance you faced wasn't evidence of your weakness, it was confirmation of your worth. The battles you endured weren't random attacks, they were strategic preparations. And the person coming to shift everything in your life, they're not just a blessing, they're a declaration from heaven itself that your season of hidden preparation is over. Your season of public manifestation has begun. They thought you were invisible. They believed you had been erased from the record. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't see, is that while they were busy overlooking you, God was archiving you. Right now, in the courts of heaven, there's a file with your name on it. Not typed, not printed, but written in the hand of the Almighty Himself. Sealed with divine purpose, timed with supernatural precision. guarded by angels who have been waiting for this exact moment to break the seal and release what's been stored up for you. You see, chosen one, every tear you cried when no one was watching, it was collected. Every prayer you whispered in the darkness, it was recorded. Every false accusation thrown at you, every door slammed in your face, every time you were passed over, overlooked, or forgotten, all of it was documented in that file. Not as evidence against you, but as evidence for you. They thought your silence meant surrender. They didn't realize your quiet was actually heaven taking notes. For years, you've wondered if anyone saw what you were going through. You questioned whether your struggles mattered to anyone. You felt like you were fighting battles in a vacuum, where your victories went unnoticed and your pain went unacknowledged. But listen to me carefully. There were witnesses. There were scribes in the spiritual realm recording every moment of your faithfulness when faithfulness felt futile. Your file, it's thick, chosen one, thick with evidence of your endurance, thick with documentation of your character under pressure, thick with testimonies from angels who watched you stand when everyone else would have fallen. Thick with reports of how you blessed those who cursed you, how you prayed for those who persecuted you, how you kept walking forward when every logical voice told you to turn back. They thought they were writing your story. They had no idea God was authoring your destiny. And here's what will shock you. That file wasn't just being kept for record. It was being prepared for release. Like a classified document waiting for the right moment to be declassified. Like a sealed treasure chest waiting for the appointed time to be opened. Like a secret weapon stored in heaven's arsenal, until the hour when it would do the most damage to the kingdom of darkness. That hour is now, because something has shifted in the spiritual realm. An angelic order has been activated. The seraphim have received their instructions. The file with your name on it is being opened, and what's inside is about to be poured out into your natural circumstances. Every seed of suffering you planted in secret is about to bloom in public. Every investment of integrity you made when no one was keeping score is about to pay dividends that will leave your enemies speechless. You didn't know it, but you were never fighting alone. You had advocates in high places. You had witnesses in the heavenly realm. You had a legal team that never lost a case. The accusations against you? Dismissed. The charges brought by your enemies? Thrown out of court. The evidence they thought they had? Overruled by a higher authority. Because your file tells a different story. Your file reveals what they couldn't see when they were busy judging your exterior. Your file exposes the truth about your heart, your motives, your faithfulness when faithfulness cost you everything. And now that file is being acted upon. Divine relocation orders are in motion. Not just a change of address, chosen one, but a change of atmosphere. You're being moved from the place where you were misunderstood to the place where you'll be celebrated. From the environment where your gifts were minimized to the platform where they'll be maximized. From the circle where you were tolerated to the assembly where you'll be treasured. They thought you were forgotten. They didn't know God had you filed under for such a time as this. The same God who preserved Noah through the flood, who protected Joseph through the prison, who promoted David from the pasture to the palace. He's been preserving you, protecting you, preparing you. Your file proves it. Your file documents every moment when you could have given up but didn't. Every instance when you could have compromised but chose character instead. Every opportunity when you could have taken revenge but chose forgiveness. And now the judge of all the earth is standing up. He's opening your file. He's reading the evidence aloud in the courts of heaven. And the verdict is unanimous. Vindication, restoration, elevation, compensation. You've been cleared of all charges. You've been found faithful in all counts. And now comes the settlement. Not just what was taken from you, but interest. Not just what you lost, but multiplication. Not just restoration, but transformation. The file is open, chosen one. The angels have their orders. The divine relocation has begun, and what they thought was your ending, God is revealing as your beginning. Your name wasn't just in a file. Your name was on a throne, and it's time to take your seat. You thought no one saw you obey in silence. The courts of heaven watched with bated breath. Chosen one, let me pull back the veil and show you something that will shake you to your core. While you were enduring those sleepless nights, while you were biting your tongue when you had every right to speak, while you were choosing forgiveness when fury would have felt so much better. You thought you were alone. You thought your restraint went unnoticed. You thought your private battles were fought in empty rooms with no witnesses. You were wrong. Every single moment of your obedience was recorded in the archives of eternity. Every time you chose the narrow path when the wide road beckoned, every instance you swallowed your pride when pride would have tasted so sweet, heaven leaned in, angels paused their songs. The very atmosphere of glory held its breath, watching you make choices that defied human nature and reflected divine character. They weren't just watching your victories, chosen one. They were documenting your defeats that weren't really defeats at all. That moment when you could have destroyed someone's reputation with a single phone call, but you chose silence instead. That day when you had the power to retaliate, to get even, to make them pay for what they did to you, but you folded your hands and prayed for them instead. Heaven saw that. Heaven recorded that. Heaven called that magnificent. You see, there's a surveillance system in the spirit realm that makes every earthly intelligence agency look like children playing with toy phones. Nothing escapes the eternal eye. Not your tears in the shower. Not your whispered prayers at 3 a.m. Not the moment you chose to bless instead of curse, to build instead of burn, to love instead of lash out. But here's what will absolutely astound you. It wasn't just angels taking notes. The forces of darkness were watching too, and they were terrified, absolutely terrified. Because every time you chose the high road, every time you absorbed pain instead of reflecting it, every time you turned the other cheek when turning around and walking away would have been easier, you were demonstrating a power they couldn't understand, couldn't counter, couldn't defeat. Your restraint was their nightmare. Your silence was their sentence. Your mercy was their judgment. They threw everything they had at you, hoping to provoke you into becoming like them. Bitter, vengeful, small. They needed you to fight fire with fire, because that's a battle they know how to win. But you didn't fight fire with fire, did you? You transcended the battlefield entirely. You fought darkness with light, hatred with love, chaos with peace. And in doing so, you didn't just win the battle. You redefined what victory looks like. The surveillance didn't stop there. Heaven was also watching your private worship, those moments when you praised God not because you felt like it, but because you chose to. When your circumstances screamed one thing, but your lips declared another. When everything around you suggested that God had forgotten you, but you lifted your hands anyway and said, "Even if he doesn't, I will still trust him." That kind of worship doesn't just reach heaven, it shakes it. It moves the heart of God in ways that perfect circumstances never could. It proves that your faith isn't conditional on comfort, that your devotion isn't dependent on convenience, that your love for him transcends your need from him. Every sleepless night you spent in prayer instead of plotting revenge was noted. Every time you sowed seeds of kindness into barren ground was cataloged. Every moment you chose to build bridges instead of walls, to open doors instead of slamming them, to extend grace instead of withholding it. All of it was witnessed by a cloud of heavenly observers who understood the magnitude of what they were seeing. You thought you were just surviving. Heaven saw you conquering. You thought you were just enduring. Heaven saw you reigning. You thought you were just getting by. Heaven saw you governing realms in the spirit that you didn't even know existed. And now, chosen one, now comes the response. Because surveillance in heaven isn't passive observation. It's active documentation, building a case for divine intervention. Every act of your faithfulness became evidence in the courtroom of eternity. Every moment of your obedience became a witness on your behalf. Every time you chose God's way over your way became a testimony that heaven could not ignore. The gavel is about to fall, but not in judgment against you, in judgment for you, in vindication of everything you've walked through, everything you've endured, everything you've overcome. The same eyes that watched you suffer in silence are now preparing to watch you triumph in spectacular fashion. The surveillance is ending, the demonstration is beginning. And what happens next will prove to every force in heaven and earth that when God says someone is chosen, they are unbreakably, unshakably, undeniably chosen. Your private obedience is about to become your public victory. Your hidden faithfulness is about to become your visible favor. Your silent suffering is about to become your spoken testimony. Because nothing, absolutely nothing, you did for God went unwitnessed. Even your silence was recorded, especially your silence. And now heaven is ready to break its silence and speak on your behalf with a voice that cannot be ignored, cannot be silenced, and cannot be stopped. The surveillance is complete. The evidence is overwhelming. The verdict is in your favor, and someone is coming to deliver it personally. They thought the whispers would bury you. Instead, they became your introduction. Listen to me, chosen one. Every lie they told about you, every rumor they spread, every room they tried to keep you out of, it wasn't random malice. It was spiritual construction. The enemy was building something, brick by brick, word by word, wound by wound. He thought he was building your tomb, but God was letting him build your stage. You see, there's a divine irony that only heaven understands. The same voices that tried to diminish you are now the ones that announced you. Their gossip became your press release. Their rejection became your redirection. Their attempt to make you invisible only made heaven's spotlight brighter when it finally found you. They whispered in corners about your failures. God heard every word and turned it into your testimony. They pointed at your scars. God saw your survival. They mocked your tears. God collected them in bottles and turned them into anointing oil. You didn't fight fire with fire, you transcended the battlefield. While they were busy throwing stones, you were busy building altars. While they were crafting narratives of your downfall, God was scripting your comeback. Every accusation they hurled became evidence of your endurance. Every door they slammed became proof that you weren't meant for those rooms anyway. You were being reserved for chambers they could never enter. The enemy made one critical miscalculation. He thought shame would silence you. He thought humiliation would humble you into hiding. He thought if he could just wound you deep enough, publicly enough, consistently enough, you would eventually crawl away and disappear. But shame was never your portion. Humiliation was never your inheritance. You were forged in the fire of scrutiny and emerged with a glow they couldn't extinguish. You were pressed in the winepress of public opinion and came out as pure wine. Every attack that was meant to destroy your reputation only refined your character. Every blow that was supposed to break your spirit only deepened your roots. The stage they built to mock you became your platform of authority. Think about it, chosen one. Every false narrative they constructed had to be big enough, loud enough, persistent enough to contain your actual calling. They had to build something massive to try to bury something as weighty as your destiny. The very scale of their opposition was evidence of the magnitude of your assignment. God let them exhaust themselves building. He watched them pour their energy, their time, their resources into constructing elaborate schemes to diminish you. And when they were finished, when they had built their monument to your supposed failure, God stepped onto their stage and took the microphone. Their platform became his pulpit. Their audience became his congregation. Their moment of triumph became his moment of revelation. And what did he reveal? Not your shame, but your strength. Not your failures, but your faithfulness. Not your wounds, but your wisdom. Not your past, but your purpose. The courtroom of public opinion became the throne room of divine vindication. You didn't need to defend yourself because God was your defense attorney. You didn't need to justify your journey because heaven was your jury. You didn't need to explain your process because your progress spoke louder than their protests. Every word they spoke against you became a prophecy of your promotion. Every stone they threw became a cornerstone in the foundation of your future. Every pit they dug for your downfall became the excavation site for your palace. God let them build it. Now he's using it. The enemy thought he was writing your obituary, but God was composing your biography. The enemy thought he was hosting your funeral, but God was planning your coronation. The enemy thought he was burying your dreams, but God was planting seeds that would grow into forests of favor. You see, chosen one, the enemy can only work with the materials God allows him to touch. And God, in his infinite wisdom, allowed the enemy to build you a stage, not to destroy you, but to display you. Not to shame you, but to showcase the power of his grace working through surrendered vessels. Their gossip became your announcement. Their rejection became your redirection. Their attempts to make you small only made your eventual rising more magnificent. Now here's what the enemy didn't see coming. The same people who whispered about your struggles would one day whisper about your success. The same voices that questioned your calling would one day quote your wisdom. The same hands that pointed at your pain would one day applaud your perseverance. The stage was built. The lights are on. The microphone is hot. And God is about to use the very platform they constructed for your humiliation to broadcast your elevation to a world that needs to see what resurrection looks like in real time. They built the stage thinking it was your ending, but God is taking the mic, and this is just your beginning. The curtain is rising, chosen one, and the performance they're about to witness isn't drama, it's documentary, a real-time recording of what happens when heaven decides to vindicate the faithful, restore the wounded, and promote the humble. They thought they were building your grave. God turned it into your throne. They don't know your full story, but they've been commanded to open a door. Chosen one, while you were learning to stand in the furnace of your solitude, while you were being refined in the crucible of rejection, while you were discovering that your greatest weapon wasn't anger but integrity, someone else was being prepared in a different kind of fire. They've been walking their own wilderness. Not the wilderness of abandonment like yours, but the wilderness of abundance. Learning that success without soul is emptiness. Discovering that power without purpose is poison. They've climbed mountains that others worship, only to find themselves more hollow at the top than they were at the bottom. And in their emptiness, God whispered your name. You see, covenant doesn't just mature in poverty, chosen one. It matures in palaces too. It grows in boardrooms and corner offices. It develops in the hearts of those who have everything the world offers but still feel the ache for something eternal. This stranger, this person of influence who's about to shift everything in your world, they've been on their own journey of divine dissatisfaction. They've been successful by every earthly measure, yet success has left them starving for significance. While you were learning to trust God with nothing, they were learning to trust God with everything. While you were being stripped of comfort, they were being stripped of false security. While you were fighting for your faith in the shadows, they were fighting for their soul in the spotlight. And now, covenant is calling them to you. They don't know your address, but they know your assignment. They don't know your pain, but they've been stirred to heal it. They don't know your dreams, but they've been positioned to fund them. They carry keys they don't even realize they possess, keys that were forged in heaven's locksmith shop, designed specifically for the doors that have been sealed in your life. This isn't charity, chosen one. This is covenant. When God matures a promise, He doesn't just prepare the receiver, He prepares the releaser. He doesn't just anoint the vessel, He anoints the valve. This stranger has been walking in divine restlessness, sensing that their resources, their influence, their platform was meant for something greater than their own comfort. They've been having dreams they can't explain, stirrings they can't shake, a pull towards something they can't name but can't ignore. That pull is you. You thought you were forgotten in your season of hiddenness, but you were being discussed in boardrooms you've never entered. Your breakthrough was being planned in conference rooms you've never seen. Your elevation was being orchestrated by hands you've never shaken. Because when covenant matures, God sends carriers. They carry more than money, chosen one. They carry momentum. They carry connections that bypass the systems that rejected you. They carry influence that opens doors that were slammed in your face. They carry authority that speaks where your voice was silenced. But here's what makes this divine. They need you as much as you need them. You see, wealth without wisdom is worthless. Success without soul is suicide. They've discovered that all their achievements feel hollow without the kind of authenticity you've been forged to carry. Your integrity intimidates the intimidators. Your humility breaks the pride that money can't touch. Your genuine spirit exposes the fake fires they've been surrounded by. You are their reality check wrapped in flesh. While they were accumulating, you were becoming. While they were climbing, you were developing character. While they were networking, you were learning to know God. And now, God is networking you together not for convenience, but for commission. This stranger will not just relocate your body, chosen one. They will relocate your entire reality. The scarcity mindset that poverty tried to plant in you will wither in the presence of their generosity. The small thinking that rejection tried to impose on you will shatter when you see the scope of their vision. But don't mistake this for rescue. This is recognition. They're not saving you from anything. They're discovering what God placed in you. They're not your benefactor. They're your co-laborer. They're not your sponsor. They're your spiritual sibling, sent to remind you that covenant is a two-way river. You will pour wisdom into their success. They will pour resources into your vision. You will teach them how to carry wealth with humility. They will teach you how to expand your faith with boldness. Together, you will build something neither of you could construct alone. You've been praying for a breakthrough, chosen one, but God is sending you a build-through. You've been asking for a way out, but He's providing a way up. You've been seeking relief, but He's delivering revival. This stranger carries the scent of answered prayers. You forgot you prayed. They hold the keys to rooms you didn't know existed. They possess the influence to shift narratives that tried to define you. And they're coming not because you deserved it, but because covenant demanded it. The same God who commanded ravens to feed Elijah is commanding resources to find you. The same power that told a fish to carry Jonah's provision is telling prosperity to carry your purpose. The same voice that instructed the earth to open for Moses is instructing earthly vessels to open for you. Covenant doesn't ask permission from poverty. It doesn't negotiate with lack. It doesn't apologize to scarcity. When covenant matures, it moves. And right now, chosen one, while you're listening to these words, while your spirit is stirring with recognition, while hope is rising in your chest like dawn breaking over darkness, covenant is moving in your direction. This stranger doesn't know they're about to become part of your story. They just know they can't shake the feeling that their next chapter is about to begin. They don't know your name yet, but your breakthrough is written in their assignment. Get ready, chosen one. The door isn't just opening. The door is walking toward you. Listen carefully, chosen one. What you think is happening to you right now, it's not happening to you. It's happening through you. And it was set in motion long before your grandmother's grandmother ever drew breath. You think this is coincidence? You think this divine shift, this supernatural alignment, this person being sent to change everything in your world, you think it just happened to fall into place? This was written in the stars before the stars knew their names. This was decreed in the courts of heaven before the earth had form. Before your bloodline existed, before your family tree ever took root, God was already scripting this exact moment. He was already planning this divine intervention. He was already preparing the one who would shift everything. You're not walking into the unknown, beloved. You're walking into remembrance. Think about it. Every generation before you, they felt it too, didn't they? That restlessness, that sense that something greater was coming. Your great-grandmother, sitting by her window, praying prayers she couldn't quite put words to. Your grandfather, working with his hands but dreaming with his spirit about a future he'd never see but somehow knew was coming. They were carrying pieces of this prophecy, fragments of this divine plan. They were stewarding promises they'd never lived to witness, but they held them anyway. They protected them. They passed them down through bloodline and blessing, through midnight prayers and whispered hopes. And now it's your turn to inherit what they preserved. You didn't get here by accident. You got here by appointment. Every twist in your family's story, every tragedy that should have ended the line, every miracle that kept hope alive, it was all protection. It was all preparation. It was heaven making sure this prophecy survived long enough to reach you. The enemy tried to stop it, didn't he? He tried to break your bloodline with addiction, with poverty, with early death, with abandonment. He threw everything he had at your family tree, trying to chop it down before it could bear this fruit, before it could produce you. But he failed, because what God decrees, no devil can delete. What heaven writes, hell cannot rewrite. And your story, your breakthrough, your divine appointment, it was written with ink that doesn't fade and sealed with blood that doesn't fail. You think you're just meeting someone? You think this is just a relationship? Just a business opportunity? Just a chance encounter? Wake up. This is prophecy fulfilling itself. This is ancient words becoming flesh. This is promises your ancestors died believing in finally taking form and walking into your reality. Every door that slammed shut in your past, it was protecting this door from opening too early. Every person who walked away, they weren't your people because they weren't part of this prophecy. Every season of isolation, every moment of waiting, every night you cried yourself to sleep wondering if God had forgotten you. He was positioning you. He was moving pieces on a chessboard you couldn't see, aligning circumstances across decades, orchestrating encounters across continents, timing hearts across timelines. All so that in this moment, in this season, in this divine appointment, everything would converge exactly as He planned it before time began. You're not lucky, beloved. You're aligned. You're not early. You're on prophecy's schedule, the person coming to shift everything in your world. They've been prepared just as long as you have. They've walked through their own wilderness, fought their own battles, been refined in their own fire. Not by coincidence, by design. Because this prophecy required two vessels strong enough to carry what's about to be released. Think of it this way. Somewhere in the halls of eternity, before your first breath, God looked at this moment and smiled. He saw you, exactly as you are right now, receiving exactly what you're about to receive, and he said, "It is good." This move wasn't planned last week. It wasn't decided last year. It wasn't even conceived in this lifetime. This shift was written in the original blueprint of your existence. It's been waiting for you to grow into it, to become ready for it, to align with it. And now the ancient script is being activated. Every struggle you faced was character development for this chapter. Every triumph you've experienced was preparation for this promotion. Every lesson you've learned was equipping you for this elevation. You've been in rehearsal your whole life, chosen one, and now it's showtime. The tears you cried weren't wasted water. They were watering seeds that were planted before you were born. The prayers you prayed weren't just words in the wind. They were activating clauses in a covenant that was signed before the foundation of the world. This is bigger than you thought, deeper than you imagined, more ancient than you realized. You're not just getting blessed, you're stepping into inheritance. You're not just receiving favor, you're walking into fulfillment of prophecy that spans generations. And the most beautiful part? This is just the beginning. Because what's written about your future, what's planned for your children, and your children's children, what's been prophesied over the legacy you're about to build, even heaven can barely contain its excitement. This move was written before you were born, but how it unfolds from here, that's the story you and God are about to write together. And it's going to be magnificent. They thought they buried you, but they forgot something crucial about chosen ones. We don't stay down, we don't stay hidden, and we certainly don't stay quiet when heaven decides it's time to make a statement. You see, chosen one, while they were whispering about your downfall, God was orchestrating your rise. While they were placing bets on your failure, heaven was preparing a table. And not just any table, a table set in the presence of your enemies. A feast prepared with such precision, such divine timing, that when you finally take your seat, they'll have no choice but to watch and wonder and remember every word they spoke against you. This isn't revenge, it's revelation. And they're about to see who had your back the whole time. Do you remember the nights you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if anyone would ever see your worth? Do you remember the meetings where they overlooked you, the conversations where they dismissed your ideas, the moments when they made you feel invisible? They thought they were erasing you from the story. But God was writing you into the climax. You didn't fight fire with fire. You transcended the battlefield. While they were throwing stones, you were building altars. While they were spreading rumors, you were spreading your knees in prayer. While they were cursing your name in boardrooms, God was blessing your name in the throne room. And chosen one, guess which room carries more weight? They never understood the power of your silence. They mistook your restraint for weakness, your patience for passivity. They didn't realize that every time you chose not to retaliate, you were allowing God to build your case. Every tear that fell in secret became evidence in the court of heaven. Every betrayal they orchestrated became another charge against their own souls. You were never fighting them. You were outlasting them. And now, as the season shifts, as the tide turns, they're beginning to see what they couldn't see before. Your name isn't disappearing from conversations. It's dominating them. Your influence isn't shrinking. It's expanding beyond anything they thought possible. The doors they tried to close are swinging open with such force that even they can hear the hinges singing your victory song. Watch how their confidence starts to crack when they realize you're not just surviving, you're thriving. Watch how their smirks fade when your success becomes undeniable. Not because you sought revenge, but because you sought God's face. And when God decides to showcase his chosen ones, the whole world becomes an audience. They thought they knew you. They thought they had you figured out, categorized, contained. But chosen one, they were looking at your humanity while God was revealing your divinity. They saw your scars. God saw your strength. They focused on your past. God was funding your future. They judged your exterior while heaven was celebrating your interior. You are not who they said you were. You never were. The whispers that once carried your name with contempt will now carry it with wonder. The lips that once cursed your journey will find themselves speechless at your destination. The hands that once pointed in accusation will clap in reluctant admiration, not because you forced them to, but because truth has a way of demanding recognition. God didn't just clear your name, He elevated it. He didn't just restore your reputation, He revolutionized it. Every lie they told about you is being rewritten by your reality. Every prediction of your failure is being demolished by your favor. Every attempt to diminish your light is being overshadowed by your radiance. This is what happens when God decides to make a point. This is what happens when heaven wants to send a message. This is what happens when the Almighty chooses to remind the earth that His chosen ones are untouchable, unstoppable, and absolutely, completely vindicated. You didn't need to defend yourself. God was your defense attorney. You didn't need to fight your battles. God was your general. You didn't need to prove your worth. God was your witness. And now the verdict is in. Not guilty, not just innocent. Blessed, favored, chosen, elevated, vindicated beyond their wildest imagination. They're watching you now with different eyes. The mockery has been replaced with curiosity. The dismissal has turned into respect. The contempt has transformed into something they never expected to feel toward you, awe. Because when God moves on behalf of His chosen ones, even the hardest hearts have to acknowledge that something supernatural is at work. You didn't just overcome their opposition. You outlived it. You outlasted it. You outgrew it. And now you're operating in dimensions they can't even access, building in territories they can't even imagine, walking in authority they can't even comprehend. This is your vindication season, chosen one. Not because you demanded it, but because you deserved it. Not because you fought for it, but because you trusted for it. Not because you manipulated circumstances, but because you surrendered to God's timing. They're going to watch you rise, not with anger, but with amazement. Not with resentment, but with recognition. Because deep down, beneath all their resistance, they always knew there was something different about you. Something they couldn't touch, couldn't break, couldn't steal. Something that belonged to heaven before it ever walked on earth. And now that something is about to be revealed in ways that will make them remember why they were so threatened by you in the first place. You were never their competition. You were their conviction. A living reminder that God still moves, still chooses, still elevates the humble and humbles the proud. Get ready, chosen one. Your vindication isn't coming quietly. It's coming with such power, such grace, such undeniable favor, that even your enemies will have to admit, God's hand is on this one. God's favor surrounds this one. God's purpose flows through this one. And they're about to witness a demonstration of divine justice that will leave them speechless, breathless, and completely convinced that crossing you was the same as crossing heaven itself. The table is set. Your seat is ready. And they have front row tickets to watch you feast on the promises they said would never come to pass. They thought hiding you would silence you. They were wrong. For years, chosen one, you lived in the shadows of your own calling. You carried fire but walked in darkness. You held keys but stood outside locked doors. You spoke truth but your voice echoed in empty rooms. The world looked at you and saw ordinary. Heaven looked at you and saw extraordinary. And now the veil is being torn away. You're not just being relocated, beloved. You're being revealed. Every place that rejected you was too small to contain what you carried. Every door that closed was protecting what lay behind it from the earthquake of your arrival. Every season of silence was heaven holding its breath, waiting for the moment when your emergence would shake both realms. You thought you were being punished. You were being positioned. God didn't just shift your surroundings, He shifted the spirit realm's awareness of you. Listen carefully. There's a difference between being moved and being manifested. Moving is about geography. Manifestation is about glory. You've spent years being shuffled from place to place, job to job, relationship to relationship, wondering why nothing ever seemed to stick. Here's why. You weren't meant to stick anywhere until you arrived at the place where your true self could emerge. The wilderness wasn't your destination, it was your development. The cave wasn't your prison, it was your incubation chamber. Every lonely night, every tear-soaked pillow, every prayer that felt like it hit the ceiling and bounced back, all of it was the forging process. God was creating something in you that the world had never seen before. Something they couldn't categorize, something they couldn't control. You were being made dangerous to mediocrity. Now watch what happens when a hidden weapon finally finds its target. Watch what occurs when a secret finally demands to be told. Watch the atmosphere shift when someone who was trained in obscurity steps into the light with authority burning in their bones. You're not arriving with apology, you're arriving with assignment. The person being sent to relocate you sees what others missed. They don't see your scars as disqualification, they see them as credentials. They don't view your sensitivity as weakness, they recognize it as spiritual radar. They don't interpret your intensity as instability, they understand it as holy fire that refuses to be contained in religious boxes. They're not coming to fix you, you're not broken, they're coming to position you, because God is done with you being a best-kept secret. Remember David in the field while his brothers stood in formation. The prophet wasn't looking for the impressive ones. He was hunting for the anointed one. Your family saw a shepherd boy. Heaven saw a king. Your co-workers see an employee. Heaven sees an entrepreneur. Your community sees a single person. Heaven sees a dynasty waiting to be born. The revelation isn't just about who you are. It's about whose you are. When this divine relocator enters your life, something ancient awakens in you. Something that's been sleeping under the weight of other people's limited expectations. You start moving differently, speaking differently, carrying yourself like someone who finally remembers they were born for dominion, not survival. You stop asking permission to be powerful. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You stop shrinking to make small minds comfortable. You stop whispering when God gave you a voice that could command mountains to move. This isn't pride. This is awakening. This isn't arrogance. This is authority. This isn't ego. This is anointing finally finding its expression. The enemy fought so hard to keep you hidden because he knew what would happen when you were revealed. He knew that your emergence would expose his lies. He knew that your rising would inspire others to rise. He knew that your boldness would become contagious in a world full of people who've been taught to play small. Conclusion. Chosen one, as we come to the close of this divine encounter, I need you to carry these truths with you like sacred fire in your heart. Remember this: every season of silence was heaven preparing your stage. Every door that closed was God protecting you from settling for less than his best. Every person who walked away made room for the one who was always meant to stay. Your waiting wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Your isolation wasn't abandonment, it was appointment. And your tears, every single one, were seeds that heaven has been watering in secret, preparing for a harvest that will astound even you. The attacks you survived were never about your past, they were about your future. The enemy saw what was coming for you before you did, and he panicked. But chosen one, what God has ordained, no force in hell can override. What heaven has sealed, earth cannot break. What divine love has written, human hatred cannot erase. You are not walking this journey alone, not now, not ever. While you were crying in secret, God was moving in silence. While you were praying in the dark, angels were warring in the light. And right now, there's a community of believers, people just like you, who understand the weight of being chosen, ready to stand with you, pray for you, and remind you that your story isn't over. It's just beginning. I want you to pause for a moment. Look around your life right now. Can you see it? The subtle shifts, the unexpected favor, the doors beginning to creak open, the people starting to see you differently. That's not coincidence, beloved. That's confirmation. God is moving on your behalf, and what you're experiencing now is just the prelude to the symphony he's about to conduct through your life. But I have to ask you this question, and I want you to really search your heart as you answer. Are you ready to step into the fullness of what God has prepared? Are you willing to release the safety of your hiding place to embrace the calling on your life? Because chosen one, your season of preparation is ending, and your season of manifestation is beginning. Let me pray over you now, not as a stranger, but as someone who understands the weight you've carried. Close your eyes if you can, and let these words wash over your weary soul. A prayer for the chosen ones. Father God, I come before you now carrying the hearts of every person listening to this message. Lord, you see them, not just their faces, but their scars. Not just their circumstances, but their character. You know every tear they've cried, every prayer they've whispered, every moment they've felt forgotten. God, I ask you to place your hand upon each one right now. Where they've been wounded, bring healing. Where they've been weary, bring rest. Where they've been waiting, bring breakthrough. Let them feel your presence so powerfully in this moment that every doubt dissolves, every fear fades, and every lie the enemy has whispered crumbles under the weight of your truth. Lord, the ones who have been isolated, surround them with divine connections. The ones who have been overlooked, let them be seen and celebrated. The ones who have been underestimated, reveal their true worth to the world. Open doors that no man can shut. Provide resources they never expected. Send people who will recognize their value and honor their calling. Father, break every chain that has held them back. Silence every voice that has spoken against them. Vindicate them not out of revenge, but out of your righteousness. Let their enemies become their footstools, not through their own effort, but through your divine intervention. God, prepare them for what's coming. Strengthen their hearts for the blessing. Expand their capacity for the favor. Make them ready to receive without guilt, to rise without apology, to lead without fear. Let them walk in the authority you've given them, speak with the voice you've anointed, and love with the heart you've healed. Most of all, Lord, let them never forget they are chosen, not because they're perfect, but because you're faithful. Not because they've earned it, but because you've ordained it. They are your beloved, your treasure, your masterpiece. In the mighty name of Jesus, I pray for protection over their steps, provision for their needs, and purpose in their pain. Let every setback become a setup for something greater. Let every test become a testimony that will heal others. Let every trial produce a triumph that brings you glory. Bless them coming in and going out. Bless their families, their finances, their future. Let favor follow them like a shadow, and let peace guard their hearts like a fortress. We thank you, Lord, because you are faithful. What you have promised, you will perform. What you have spoken, you will fulfill. In Jesus' precious and powerful name, amen. Chosen one, if this message has touched your heart, if something deep within your spirit is stirring, I want you to know you're part of something bigger than yourself. You're part of a community of believers who understand your journey because they've walked it too. Leave a comment below and tell us, what truth from this message spoke to your heart? What prayer request can we lift up with you? Don't struggle in silence. Let this community surround you with prayer and encouragement. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear tonight. And please, if this word has blessed you, share it with someone who needs to know they're not forgotten. Share it with someone who's been wondering if God still sees them. Because chosen one, when we lift each other up, we all rise together. Thank you for walking through this entire journey with me. Thank you for trusting me with your time, your attention, and your heart. If these messages are feeding your soul, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. This isn't just content, it's a lifeline for the chosen ones who need to know they're seen, they're loved, and they're destined for greatness. Until we meet again, remember, you are chosen, you are covered, you are coming into everything God has promised. And your best days aren't behind you, they're racing toward you faster than you can imagine. Peace be with you, beloved. Your victory is already written. Now go walk in it.